Abhi, welcome to the Growth Mindset Conference.
Thank you, Mahesh, for your very kind words and such a warm welcome. It is really an honor to be with all of you today. But honestly, my presence here in front of 5,500 leading technologists from around the world is quite unexpected. My grandfather was a shopkeeper in India and lived in a home with rent of 50 rupees a month, or in today's terms, less than $1 a month. I grew up in that home with 10 family members, my grandparents, parents, brother, aunt, uncle, and cousins, all under one roof. But, my grandfather had bigger dreams for his sons. And so with a loan and a scholarship, my father came to study in America, the land of opportunity. Through hard work, my mother got a Rotary scholarship and joined my dad. And while studying at the University of Houston, they got married at the campus chapel with a $1 ring, and only one ring, which first he put onto her, and then she removed it and put it onto him. And their wedding feast was cooked and served by their classmates. But thankfully, my parents too had bigger dreams for their sons. And they imagined us going to the best schools in the world. And I stand here today on the shoulders of those giants who came before me and who dared to dream big. And herein lies the first important lesson I learned in life. You've got to dream big. Thinking small is a crime. My parents then returned to India after their studies, and I came to study in America alone at the age of 16. As I was wrapping up senior year of high school in Texas, my father shared with me a phone number of a gentleman who would help me find a job to pay my way through school. I called the number, and on the other line was, raspy voice with a deep Southern accent. His name was Sonny, and I said, Sonny, what kind of job is it? And he said, well, selling books. I said, that's easy. Where's your bookstore? And he said, there is no bookstore. And I was taken aback. I said, how is this going to work? And he said, well, selling books door to door. So out of curiosity, I asked him, what kind of books, Sonny, are we talking about here? And he said, well, Bibles, of course. And at this point, I said, to be honest, I've been in the US for less than a year, not exactly proficient with the Bible, not really sure how this is going to work. And he said, well, look, life is a learning experience. So I'm trying to, just get down to business at this point. I had to come up with $20,000 for tuition fees, and living expenses for the first year of college. And I said, Sonny, how much money do I make? And he said, well, that's the best part. It's not a job, it's your own business. And so we'll set you up with a bank credit line. You buy the Bibles from us at a wholesale price. You go out and sell them for retail. And, as long as you keep your expenses low, you'll have a profit margin. So, so now I'm trying to find the positive in this situation. And I asked him, where in the US would I go and do this job? And, I was thinking maybe greener pastures, New York, California. And Sonny said, look, I don't really know. You come to Nashville, Tennessee, there is a week-long training. At the end of the week, there is a hat that gets passed around the room. And you pick a note out of the hat, and whatever town's on it, you go there. I said, where am I going to live? And he said, look, I don't really know. If I don't know where the heck you're going, do you really expect me to know where you're going to live? So, he said, welcome to the real world. And he hung up the phone. I immediately dialed home and told my parents, look, there seems to have been a genuine mistake. This guy, Sonny, is telling me I got to sell Bibles door to door, 80 hours a week. Don't know how much money I'm going to make. Don't know where I'm going to end up. This is ridiculous. My father says, slow down, slow down. Are you trying to tell us that you already landed the job? And I said, well, we did discuss a lot of details, so it sounds like it. And he said, well, congratulations. That's very exciting. We're going to throw a party. We're going to celebrate. And before I could ask him for money, he hung up the phone. Now I have no money and no prospects. So $26, and 2 days later, on a Greyhound bus, I landed up in Nashville, Tennessee, with an exciting week-long training. The seventh day rolls around. The infamous hat is being passed around the room. And now it's my turn to pick my destiny. And it wasn't New York. It wasn't California. It was a small town of 18,000 people called Talladega in Alabama. 3 other students got the same town. And so off we went to Talladega. Remember, we didn't have a place to live. And so we went to a church, talked to the pastor. At the end of his sermon, he made an announcement if anyone wanted to help us. And as people were leaving, they were very kind and welcomed us to Alabama, the Southern hospitality, but the crowd was thinning out and no one was offering a place. And finally, Walter, a middle-aged high school teacher, said, do you think you can handle $250 a month each? So for $1,000 a month rent, 4 of us had a roof over our head. I got assigned the ping pong room, the table tennis room in his house. I put a mattress on the floor, and I was in business. Next morning, everybody is out the door in their cars, and they're knocking on doors by 8 a.m. I realized a technical issue. I didn't have a car. So I called home and explained to my parents, and this was really the last time I called for money, that, I'm calling from this small town in the middle of nowhere in Alabama. It's 100 degrees Fahrenheit outside. This book bag weighs 40 pounds. Back then, I weighed 120 pounds. So there's no way this is happening unless you at least buy me a $3,000-4,000 used car. You see, my expectations in life had kind of tempered down. And the answer I got was, look, 20 years ago, when we were studying there, our parents couldn't afford luxuries like secondhand cars. So all the best. So with that, the phone hung up, and I went to Walter, my landlord, and said, do you want rent? And he said, absolutely. Then I said, well, I have to sell some books. He said, look, don't worry. He had this old beat-up Jeep truck. So every morning, if you imagine, he'd be in the driver's seat. I'd be in the passenger seat. His Dalmatian dog would be in the back seat. And, we would be heading off. He'd drop me off at some crossroads in some neighborhood. And from 8 a.m. in the morning to 8 p.m. in the evening, I dragged that 40-pound bag in 100 degrees heat, try to knock on doors, and then call him up, at the end of the day, wherever I've ended up, to come and get me. So that's how the first job, the first business really began. And to be frank, it wasn't a great success. At the end of 8 or 10 weeks of grueling 80, 90 hours a week in those hot summers, my big check after all expenses was a little over $2,000. I only had 90% gap to fill up with scholarships and loans. But, I came back the second summer after first year of college to fight back. I did not want to give up. And the second summer, with hard work and luck, turned out to be much more lucrative, where I made a little over $10,000. And And then the third summer, of course, I came back because as a student, there was no other job where you could really, make that kind of money. So this is where I learned the second most important in life, the value of hard work. No matter how tough a challenge is, no matter how seemingly impossible it is, you can do whatever it is that you set your mind to. Don't ever forget that. The third and last story I wanted to share with you was, within 3 months, it had barely been even 90 days before launching the company. And, we had a small office that could barely fit, 5 people in Bangalore. And one of our investors made a call to a Fortune 20 contact that he had. And we landed this great meeting in New York. 3-4 of us traveled 10,000 miles, and landed up at their headquarters in Park Avenue. And as we're waiting in the conference room for the potential client to join in, he just kind of opens the door, peeps in. His name was Andy, and says, "Hey, thanks for stopping by. I'm troubleshooting a crisis with my boss, and I don't have a time to listen to your pitch or look at your presentation, but maybe I can give you 5 minutes." So I simply asked him the question, "How can we help you?" And he described, sort of a technology-enabled project. And I said, "Yep, absolutely, we can do that. We can dedicate a whole team to it." And within 5 minutes, we walked out. We were walking a few feet high above ground with excitement of having landed a Fortune 20 client in literally a matter of minutes. I was wondering, those 500 case studies at Harvard Business School about how tough entrepreneurship and life is, what was that all about? And then we came back, and the corporate bureaucracy kicked in. And, procurement wanted to negotiate price. Legal wanted to negotiate a 100-page contract. IT wanted to do half a dozen audits, InfoSec, security, and all kinds of stuff. And after 3 months of going through that rigmarole, we were ready to go. And again, I get the call from Andy. "Hey, seems like everything went well. All you got to do now is come and meet my boss. And as soon as she approves the project, we can go ahead." And I said, "Wait a second. You don't even have approval? And we have been, running from pillar to post, left, right, and center, just doing this for the last 3 months." So again, I get back on the flight. And right before, I'm going to come back, I get a call from the Asia head of this company saying, "Look, I have some bad news. I'm not really sure how to break it to you. I know that you're going to meet the big boss, but unfortunately, she just passed away." And I froze, feeling terrible. She lost her life to cancer. At the same time, realized that the 100-page contract in my briefcase is now worthless. In any event, got on the flight, tried not to be depressed and disappointed, and was watching whatever movie they were showing in the plane. Landed in New York, jet-lagged, middle of the night, crashed. And at 2 a.m, I got a call from my brother saying, "Hey, I'm just calling to let you know I've landed safely in New York." So I already was in a bad mood, and I took off on him saying, "Why would you wake me up in the middle of the night? Couldn't you just call in the morning?" And he said, "Well, you don't know what's happening in the world. I was on a Virgin Atlantic flight from London to New York, and Al-Qaeda had put liquid bombs on it. And luckily, it got caught just in time. And I'm calling to let you know that I have arrived safely, and I'm alive." So I said, "I'm sorry, thank God. I had no idea." Crash again within a few hours. About 6 or 7 in the morning, I get a call from James. James was going to be our team member number 1 in the US in anticipation of landing this Fortune 20 client. He said, I'm calling you from the emergency room of the hospital. I know we were going to meet for breakfast at 9 and finalize my onboarding, but I'm sorry to tell you that, I've been detected with a tumor. Thankfully, it is benign, so I'm not going to die, but there's no way I can, at this point, join this exciting new venture. And so now I'm wide awake. My jet lag is gone, and I'm wondering what else could possibly happen. And sure enough, around 10 o'clock in the morning, I get a call from Rob, who was the CEO of a small company that we were going to acquire to jumpstart the US operation. Everything was set, the legal documents were drawn up, and we pretty much just had to sign. And he explained to me that at the 11th hour, his investors were pushing for more money, and it was already too rich a deal. And so at the 11th hour, that transaction that was really going to launch the US operation fell through. So I'll be honest with you, I was thinking, did I really make the right decision to take the plunge in entrepreneurship, where I could be in a cushy job on Wall Street or in consulting, doing really well, like many of my peers. But the saving grace was a scene from the movie Rocky Balboa. They were playing on the flight over. And, for those of you that are Rocky fans, there was a heated argument between Rocky and his son in a bar. And Rocky says, the world is a mean and nasty place, and it's going to kick you down and it's going to keep you there if you let it. But it's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning's done. So with that motivation, I called a team meeting, which was really 4 of my colleagues around a conference speakerphone. And I said, look, I have to share an update with you. In the last 24 hours, our first Fortune 20 client has died. My brother was almost bombed by Al-Qaeda. Our first US colleague is in the emergency room of the hospital and cannot join. And the first acquisition that was going to jumpstart the global operation has fallen through at the 11th hour. But we're not going to give up. We're going to stay true to our vision of building a leading company in the industry that we can be proud of. And we're going to march forward. Now, there was pin drop silence on the call. And I fully anticipated that when they hang up, they'll probably dust up their resumes and go find a real job. But they believed and they stuck. And as they say, never, never, never give up. The third most important lesson in life. Otherwise, the rest would have really happened. We wouldn't have a business with operations across US, Europe, and Asia Pacific, with many of the iconic Fortune 100 clients in financial services, healthcare, technology, and energy, and numerous awards that it has won over the years. So with that third story, in closing, let me say that today we're living in historic times through this pandemic. We are up to 122 million cases, 2.7 million deaths, record unemployment, and more than 20 trillion global bailouts so far. The sheer magnitude of the impact and the speed with which it has happened has exposed how fragile our organizations and nations really are. There is heightened insecurity and uncertainty about many things, but there's clarity on one thing. the future is digital. Customers are increasingly buying digitally. Employees are working remotely. Companies are improving their operations with artificial intelligence. And we have leapfrogged many years in digital adoption. McKinsey study shows that 75% customers using digital channels for the first time will continue to do so in the future. As you know, many of the big Silicon Valley companies like Facebook have announced that they're shifting 50% employees to working remotely in 5 to 10 years. Tata Consultancy Services, with 450,000 employees, is shifting 75% within 5 years. So US productivity alone in Q2 of last year rose 10.6%, followed by a 4.6% increase in Q3, which is the largest 6-month improvement since 1965. So we are not going back to normal, but we are moving forward to a new normal. And as the leading technologists of our time, this is really your opportunity to rise to the occasion and seize the moment, to reimagine and rebuild a brave new digital world. Not only a world with the resilience to absorb future shocks, but a world with a more inclusive society and economy. So I'll leave you with, if you dream big, if you work hard, and if you don't give up, sky is really the limit. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be with you today.